Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Your microphone will be muted throughout this event. You can use the chat function to ask a question during the event, and the speaker will answer at the end of the talk, okay? Please note this event will be recorded. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Haris and Njoo Suharjono, Head of Department of O&G at Sarawak General Hospital, who will now share with us the training pathway on O&G. Dr. Haris, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Let me share my screen first. Yeah, someone has to, you have to switch off sharing, I think.
Dr. Haris, we can't hear your voice.
You can't hear my voice? Right, how about now? You still can't hear me? Hello? Okay, I've unmuted, but you still can't hear me, is it? Can you hear me? Hi, Sarah, everyone?
Can you speak louder, Dr. Haris?
Speak louder. Okay,
Yeah,
but you can hear me or you can't?
we can hear you, but your voice is very soft. Just now is okay.
Very soft, huh? So, okay, I think I
Okay,
have to
it's
closer.
okay now. It's okay now.
Okay, good. Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm going to talk to you about the training pathways for obstetrics and gynecology. And I'd like to just share this slide. You know, intelligence without ambition is like a bird without wings. What it means is that if you have the capacity to continue to do postgraduate studies, then you should. Yeah. So if we look at this, the attaining your postgraduate degree, whether it's MRCOG, MOG, MRCP, it doesn't make you a specialist in Malaysia. At this moment, you have to be registered with the National Specialist Registry, the NSR, to be recognized as a specialist. And this is important even if you want to join the private practice. The private practice only recognize those names in the NSR, registered in the NSR as specialists. Having an MRCOG or MOG does not make you one. So if you want to know how you can be registered in the NSR, first, there are two things. One is that your postgraduate degrees have to be recognized by the Malaysian Medical Council, or NSR. NSR is part of MMC. And this is followed by 2 years of satisfactory, relevant clinical practice. Only after that, you can register with the NSR. So you only become a specialist not when you are gazetted by the Ministry of Health as a specialist. That is just an administrative process, but to be recognized as a specialist, you have to be registered in the NSR. So now if you, for example, you have passed, if you pass the masters in O&G from Taiwan, for example, or from Myanmar, that would not be recognized as a postgraduate degree by the NSR. What that means is these candidates or these applicants applying to be registered in the NSR in Malaysia would have to go through additional requirements before they can be registered. So at the moment, the postgraduate degrees recognized by the NSR are the Masters in O&G by UM, USM, IIUM, and Doctor of O&G by UKM. The Member or Fellow of the Royal College of O&G UK, MRCOG or FRCOG. Fellow of the Royal College of Australia and New Zealand, College of Obstetric Gynecology, FRANSCOG. So the only two training in Malaysia for postgraduate for O&G that's recognized are the Masters in O&G or the MOH MOE program or the MOH MRCOG parallel pathway. Now, if you want to know about the guide for applicants, there is this guide for applicants book, which is just published late last year for obstetric and gynecology training in Malaysia. So in this book, you have information for those applying to enter the postgraduate training in O&G. This includes the entry requirements, selection process, what the training involves, and it is extracted from the new national postgraduate curriculum for O&G. Yeah. Now, the national postgraduate medical curriculum is actually a collaborative effort over the last few years between the conjoint board committees for the Malaysian National Universities, the Ministry of Health, and the College of O&G. So in it, now we have common curriculum for training in O&G. Whether you join the Masters or the MRCOG, it has the same curriculum. Common supervised training program, or should I say similar. Actually, the logbook will be similar. It's a common competency-based logbook. However, it's a different pathway. One is through the Ministry of Education, and the other one is through the Ministry of Health. And you come out at the end of 4 years or 5 with different postgraduate degrees. So if you look at this flow chart, being an applicant, you can apply either for the MOE, MOH pathway or the MOH, MRCOG parallel pathway. Now the requirements is as written in the boxes below that. So for the master's program, you have to attain or you have to sit for the entrance exam, the MEDEX in O&G. Right? Once you pass that, then you have to apply to the respective universities you want to apply to. And if you're accepted, then you register with the Medical Development and the Training Division in Ministry of Health. Right? And there is an interview process, and you have to be successful in that. Once you're successful, then the conjoint board for the postgraduate training in obstetric and gynecology will select and post you to the universities that perhaps your preference or it may not be your first preference. For the MRCOG parallel pathway, to enter the program now, you have to attain satisfactory pass or a pass in MRCOG Part 1. That is your entrance. Right? Once you have passed your Part 1, you have to register with the Medical Development and Training Division in the Ministry of Health, where you are given a training number and a place where you will be posted for your training. there is now a Ministry of Health MRCOG Parallel Pathway Central Committee, in which I'm part of that committee, to look at your applications, where you're posted, and also to look at your progress and the completion of your training, whether it's satisfactory or not in the end of 4 years. So actually the MOH MRCOG Parallel Pathway Central Committee functions like the conjoint board. Now this is just something that is maybe interesting for some of you, right? With regards to the master's program. If you're with the Ministry of Health and applying to enter the master's program, successful applicants at this moment have to take up scholarships, and the scholarship being offered now is the Hadiah Latihan Persekutuan, and this is offered by the training division of the Ministry of Health, right? Unfortunately, the applicants are only eligible for this HLP 2 years after being fully registered with MMC, or you can say 2 years after completing the housemanship. That would mean that you're not able to enter the master's program earlier than that. Approximately 60 to 80 hadiah latihan dalam persekutuan are offered per year for the masters in O&G program, and the bond is 5 years, and recently it has been increased from 100,000 to 300K in terms of penalty if you break the bond, right? CBBP, cuti belajar bergaji penuh. It's not implemented for O&G yet, but maybe it would be in the near future. And how long the bond would be for this CBBP is yet to be decided. Right? Cuti belajar bergaji penuh means that you still get your salary and you get sort of 4 years away from work, but actually you're still working. But the fees in which the university requires per year has to be paid out of your own pocket. So the entry requirements are such, okay, for the MOH MOE or the MOH MRCOG, basically you have to have a basic medical degree from an academic institution recognized by the MMC, or an equivalent approved by the Senate of the university concerned. This is for international students that might apply to join the master's program. You have to be fully registered as a medical practitioner and with MMC. And for the MOH MOE, you have to pass the medical specialist pre-entrance examination, as I said, successful in interview process. There is no disciplinary action. You need 2 referees report. At least one of them should be an O&G consultant. And if you're an international student, you need a letter of good standing. You also have to seek proof of proficiency in the English language, one of those, to be able to enter the MOH MOE program. Whereas it's simpler for the MOH MRCOG parallel pathway, you have to pass the MRCOG part 1, no disciplinary action, 2 referees report. Now, this is some of the dates that are involved while applying for the Masters in O&G or the MOH MRCOG program. Yeah. Right. Those dates, particularly for the MOH MRCOG, may not be just once a year in December. It may be throughout the year as you pass your part 1 or you have completed or fulfill the minimum requirement. So if you want to look at the possible differences between the master's program and the MRCOG program, if you look at the life on the master's program, training is usually conducted in University Hospital or an accredited MOH hospitals. Usually these are the state hospitals. The universities involved in this program at the moment there are 4: USM, UKM, and IIUM. It's a 4-year program, but a maximum of 7 years. You have to complete it in 7 years. It included 3 phases. And the program, the one overlooking this program is the Conjoint Board for O&G, and successful trainees will be awarded degree in Masters of O&G, that is for USM, and IIUM. UKM wanted slightly different. The degree is called Doctor of O&G. For the MRCOG, it is also a structured program with training conducted at recognized training hospitals among all the Ministry of Health hospitals, and it can also be done in the Ministry of Education. So the universities, you can do your training in the universities as well, and that would be recognized as long as it's recognized as a training hospital. The trainees will be assigned a designated educational advisor, a 4-year program. It is also a 4-year program, and the oversight is the central committee that I told you about. The successful trainees will be awarded the MRCOG by Royal College of O&G. So if you look at this, placement of training, appointment of supervisors, minimum 4 years, there is exit assessment examination. For the masters, there's only part 1 and part 2, whereas for the MRCOG is now until part 3. This may change in the coming years. The criteria for NSR registration, you have to either pass the MOG part 2 or MRCOG part 3, fulfill the national curriculum training criteria, complete 2 years of supervised clinical practice in O&G with a logbook, right? And then you get registered in the NSR. I won't spend too much time with regards to the 4-year training program for both the MOE as well as the MRCOG program. But generally, there are basically you'll be assigned supervisors. There are assessment by the Conjoint Board from time to time. It's the same with the MOH MRCOG training program. You'll be assigned an educational supervisors. Clinical supervisors are the specialists that you work with in that hospital. The educational supervisors can be from that hospital or from that region. Now, if you look at the how it works for the MRCOG parallel pathway training structure. So if you look at this is the Medical Development and Division and the Training Division of Ministry of Health. This is the MOH MRCOG Central Committee, all the trainees. So we're going to work through with the Royal College as well as the trainees. The trainees will have clinical supervisors, and the educational supervisors will provide periodical report about the trainees' progress to the Central Committee. So the one who decides that the trainees have adequate training that covers all the curriculum over that period of 4 years would be this committee, through feedback from the educational supervisors and looking at the logbook. Now, if you want to compare between MOG and MRCOG passes, in the earlier years, there are not many MRCOG passes, 5, 5, 4, 4, even in 2014. But we embarked on a program to improve the MRCOG training in Malaysia. And since then, it has picked up to one which is similar to the MOG in terms of producing the number of new specialists every year. So if you ask me, is obstetric and gynae for you? Well, it is a unique specialty. It is the only specialty that manages individuals from, you can say, is from womb to tomb, even though it's actually from preconception to tomb. It is taking care of 2 lives, not 1, and looking after the well-being of women who are not ill, but going through a joyous event, a life event. It is a fusion of medical, surgical. You would be required some social, social and community care as well in your training, as well as a specialist in this field. The opportunities are the same like any other specialties. There are opportunities for audit, innovation, research, but not only in the hospital, also community-based clinical practice and research. It is demanding and undoubtedly stressful, but careers in O&G has been described as fulfilling, diverse, exciting, and rewarding. So the qualities required for career in O&G includes all these components, basically. The extras I would say compared to other disciplines would be the collaborative work, community work, right? And you become a health advocate as well. The various components of obstetric and gynecology includes maternal fetal medicine, pediatric, adolescent gynecology, reproductive medicine, urogynecology, advocacy in women's health, cervical screening, reducing cervical cervix, research, and gynecological oncology. That is all I have to share, basically. Thank you very much. I can take, let's check the questions.
Thank you very much, Dr. Haris, for that
not
very
many questions.
informative session. Dr. Haris will now be taking questions that is in the chat box. Dear delegates, if you have any questions, kindly type your question for the speaker in the chat box. So we are waiting for the question. Okay. We do have one question, Dr. Haris.
Okay, so how do we register for the MRCOG? It's simple. You can sit and pass for the MRCOG Part 1 as a house officer, right? And once you have passed and you have completed your housemanship and gotten your full registration with MMC, then you need to fill a form. There is a form in all MOH hospitals, and this form is to be sent to the training division. Well, initially it's sent to bahagian the perkembangan KKM, and they will send it to the training division. Then the training division will give you a trainee number, and then they should assign which training hospital you would be sent to. This would be depending on, of course, your preference as well as the available slots in those hospitals. Okay, contract medical officer, that is a very good question which I have not addressed. There is currently an issue which has not been resolved yet, and that particularly applies to the master's program. That would require a scholarship or HLP, because in the requirement to be eligible for HLP, you have to be a permanent staff of KKM, not on contract. They are trying to change this such that those with contract still can or still are eligible for the HLP. For the master's, for the MRCOG program, it's in a transition period. The reason why I say this is that at this moment, if you write it to the training division and all that, the structure of the program is still being worked out. So that means if you have an MRCOG Part 1 and you apply through a training division, you can actually apply through the State Health Department if you are not in a training center to be transferred to a training center, probably in a hospital in your state. That would be easier. And you can already start your training, even though the training division of KKM have not given you a training slot. That would be recognized as long as you start filling your logbook. So this is a transition period for the MRCOG program, where even those who are on contract, but they have Part 1, they can start their training, and they are not likely to stop this training if, let's say, the program changes 1 year down the line. You're likely to be able to complete the entire 4 years and sit for the exam and still recognized as an O&G specialist. However, there is a possibility, because at this moment there is no scholarship for the MRCOG program. However, there is a possibility that CBBP, cuti belajar, what is that? Okay, CBBP may be offered to all MRCOG trainees. That would mean that whether this would involve then all of you have to be on a permanent post to be able to enter the program, I cannot give you an answer. But the current understanding is that they will try to offer scholarship even those on contract, and perhaps change it to permanent once you are managed to enter a postgraduate program, either in the master's program or the MRCOG program. What is the expiry date for MRCOG results? There is no expiry date for MRCOG results, I think, but naturally you can't wait for 10 years after passing Part 1 and then you wouldn't want to join the MRCOG program. What is your personal preference to give fresh graduate to which pathway to choose? Okay, which pathway to choose? If you ask me, then obviously I'll be biased. I'm in the forefront for the MRCOG training program, but I think the MRCOG program offers certain advantages over the master's program. One, it is possible to enter the program earlier because it does not rely on scholarship at this moment. Secondly, you have the freedom to be trained where you prefer, and you do not have to move to a different training center unless, for example, you're being trained in Cebu, for example, a smaller specialist hospital, and you may not get the enough exposure over that 4 years in Cebu. So it could be 2 years in Cebu and then move to a tertiary hospital where you're exposed to other subspecialties. That is what the Central Committee will be doing. In that way, I would say personally the MRCOG program allows more freedom than the master's program. Of course, the drawback compared between the two, you can say that the master's program is more structured. So I'm not sure whether you're someone who loves to be told what you need to read and what you need to do over that 4 years and be trained in a place, a university, or perhaps 2 or 3 years of it in a tertiary hospital, or you prefer to do it the way you want to do it and still get trained. The quality of the end product is largely dependent on the person rather than the training program. Okay, there is a question for Parvina. If we medical students are interested in a career in O&G, what can we do at medical school level to protect? Okay, I think you don't have to do anything different whether you're going to join O&G or any other discipline. Yeah, so there is nothing that you can do as an undergraduate besides trying to learn good habits about studying, be interested in the care, compassion, all the stuff that would be required for anyone to become a good doctor. If we were able to do O&G training aboard UK with the MRCOG and plan to return Malaysia as a specialist, what is the criteria for us to be absorbed in the Malaysian system? Okay, because the MRCOG is recognized by the NSR, so if you go to the UK and do 2 years, 3 years, 4 years training, pass the exam, right, and continue to work in UK in a recognized training center, you have a logbook for 2 years. When you come back, it is possible to be registered in the NSR. Okay, good afternoon. Why did you choose a career in O&G and how was your journey? All right. I've always liked O&G as an undergraduate. When I was a house officer, it was either O&G or ENT, frankly speaking. I've liked the who I've worked with when I was in O&G and felt that I belong there. There is something different about O&G compared to the other discipline. I suppose that's the reason why I joined O&G compared to other discipline. Those are the questions so far. Any other questions?
I think that's all from the participants. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Haris, for that excellent session. I am sure the participants will be leaving the session today with a much clearer understanding on what is required in achieving their dreams of being a specialist in the field of O&G. Once again, thank you very much. Dear delegates, I hope you have found that session very informative. Please do not forget to sign in to the next session that will be starting in 5 minutes time. Dear Dr. Haris, can I ask you to sign into the Zoom link for the second session immediately after this?
Okay.
All right, okay. Thanks all for participating.